Humans are not a special species that appeared out of thin air, but rather the fortunate ones who evolved step by step from countless ancient life forms. Every human species is fascinating, but behind them lies an even longer, more mysterious evolutionary path. To truly understand who we are, we must look beyond the genus Homo to a much older fossil record, tracing back to that incredible source of life. First, we must start with the origin of primates. Primates appeared around the end of the Cretaceous period, approximately 63 to 74 million years ago. Although some studies suggest a more recent timeline, that's not the crucial point. The key is what made primates different from their contemporaries. Primates evolved relatively large brains, forward-facing eyes, grasping hands with opposable thumbs, and fingers without claws. Many animals might have one or two of these features, but the combination of all of them was the secret to primate success. Primates survived the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event and continued to diversify throughout the Cenozoic era. Their evolutionary paths gradually diverged. One branch, the higher primates, which includes monkeys and apes, began to split around 40 million years ago. Next, this group of higher primates split again into New World monkeys, Old World monkeys, and apes. Apes diverged from Old World monkeys about 25 million years ago. They have many differences compared to their monkey relatives, such as having 5 cusps on their lower molars and 4 on the upper, shoulders capable of full rotation, a wider and shallower chest cavity, and they completely lost their external tails. Apes are generally larger than monkeys and evolved into more diverse ecological roles, beginning to occupy various habitats. The first to break away from the great ape family were the gibbons, who went their own way about 18 million years ago. Their evolution somewhat reverted to a monkey-like strategy, a small body with long limbs. Our branch, the family that includes the genus Homo, is often called the great apes or hominids, and it evolved larger bodies. Orangutans split from the hominid line about 14 million years ago, and remain primarily active in the trees. Our lineage, however, seemed more inclined to live on the ground, especially in Africa. Gorillas branched off from our line about 8.8 million years ago, taking the path of large herbivores. They developed a massive digestive system to handle large quantities of low-nutrient leaves and plants. Meanwhile, our lineage remained partially dependent on trees, with a diet leaning towards energy-rich foods like fruits, nuts, and seeds. Next comes the momentous split between our ancestors and the ancestors of chimpanzees and bonobos. Many people think we evolved from chimpanzees, but that's incorrect. We and chimpanzees are like siblings, not a parent and child. We evolved from a common ancestor, each along our own path. And chimpanzees have also undergone significant evolution over the past few million years. The common ancestor of humans and chimpanzees likely lived in the late Miocene. The timing of the split is highly debated. Molecular evidence suggests it was between 4 and 8 million years ago, other evidence points to 6 to 7 million years ago, and some even propose it began as early as 13 million years ago. In short, this great divergence may have started 10 million years ago, but subsequent genetic mixing between various groups makes a precise date very difficult to determine. We now have some fossils that might represent this common ancestor, but confirmation is tough. For instance, a 9.9 million-year-old fossil found in Canada has been suggested as a possible ancestor to both us and chimpanzees. However, fossils from Greece and Turkey, dating from 9.6 to 7.4 million years ago, known as Grecopithecus, have also been proposed as that key ancestor, leading some to support a European origin theory. Of course, a European origin is possible, but Grecopithecus seems more closely related to orangutans than to chimpanzees or humans. Therefore, the last common ancestor of humans and chimpanzees most likely came from Africa. But regardless of where this ancestor lived, what's more important is what happened after it diverged into the ancestors of chimpanzees and bonobos on one side, and the ancestors of humans and other bipedal relatives on the other. The ancestors on the chimpanzee side likely stayed in the trees, becoming highly skilled at knuckle walking. Our ancestors, on the other hand, began to experiment with walking on 2 feet, practicing their independent gait. However, determining whether a fossil ape belongs to our human lineage or the chimpanzee lineage is quite difficult. The characteristics of a chimpanzee ancestor are thin-toothed enamel, large and sharp canines, and a standard quadrupedal posture. For our early human ancestors, we look for smaller canines, thicker tooth enamel, and skeletal structures adapted for bipedalism. Here's a key point. Canines are particularly important because they symbolize aggression. Male chimpanzee canines are large and intimidating, used for internal fighting. In our human lineage, canines are smaller and similar between sexes, indicating that internal conflict within our family groups had greatly diminished. Currently, the oldest known fossil that may belong to our human lineage is Sahelanthropus cadensis, discovered in northern Chad, literally lying on the ground's surface. This made it difficult to date accurately at first, but later analysis provided a time range of about 6.8 to 7.2 million years ago. This set of fossils includes a relatively complete skull, jaw, teeth, and limb bones. It had a small brain capacity and a thick brow ridge, but smaller canines and a flatter face compared to chimpanzees. The position of its foramen magnum, the hole at the base of the skull that connects to the neck, is more centered than in chimpanzees, which may indicate that Sahelanthropus had a more upright, human-like posture. However, there has been fierce debate in the academic world about its femur. A 2020 paper argued it was not suited for bipedalism, but then a 2022 paper immediately reversed this, stating that morphologically, it was likely not a quadruped and was quite accustomed to walking on two legs. So, overall, the evidence from the pelvis down is indeed consistent with habitual bipedalism, though it probably still climbed trees, existing in a stage of moving both on the ground and in the trees. Thus, Sahelanthropus may be one of the earliest bipedal apes in our human lineage. To be clear, our human lineage is called Hominina, and any bipedal ape on this line is considered a hominin. The genus Homo is just one branch within the hominins. The family Hominidae, on the other hand, includes all existing and extinct great apes. While we would love to say that Sahelanthropus is the very earliest hominin, we must be cautious. It's also possible that it was a relative on the chimpanzee side that simply evolved some convergent traits similar to ours. Fortunately, we have other fossils to help piece together the puzzle. For example, a fossil from about 6.1 to 5.7 million years ago, called Ororhyntogenensis, might be an even earlier hominin species. Its teeth are very small for its body size, and its canines are also reduced. Furthermore, its femur shows a structure for bipedalism, although other parts of its body were still adapted for climbing. Some scholars suggest it could be an intermediate between Miocene apes and Australopithecus. Others believe it belongs to another branch entirely. Regardless, these fossils provide extremely valuable clues, even if they don't offer 100% conclusions. Next up is another heavyweight contender, Ardipithecus. Scientists have discovered two species. One is the older Ardipithecus cadaba, from about 5.6 million years ago, but we only have some fragmentary remains. Its toe bone appears to have been used for walking, and its teeth suggest it might be the ancestor of the later Ardipithecus ramidus. And Ardipithecus ramidus is much more helpful. We have found a relatively complete fossil, including a skull, teeth, pelvis, hands, and feet. Its hands, feet, and pelvis show, on one hand, skills for tree climbing, and on the other, clear adaptations for walking on 2 feet. Its foramen magnum and pelvis are more designed for walking than any previous ancestor, though it certainly still spent a lot of time climbing trees and had not completely abandoned aerial locomotion. At this point, you might think this sounds a lot like the others mentioned before. But what makes it truly special are its incredibly small canines, with little difference between males and females. This suggests their social structure may no longer have been like that of chimpanzees, where status is determined by showing off teeth and fighting. It was more like the model of human ancestors, a bit more about relationships and a bit less about violence. Even more interesting is that their entire body structure appears more juvenile, or neotenous. Compared to older ancestors, they look more like young apes that haven't fully grown up. This brings us to a key word, neoteny, which is the slowing or delaying of development. This mechanism allows an animal to retain many infant-like features into adulthood, and it might just be the key secret to how humans and other apes went their separate ways. If you look at photos of human babies and baby chimpanzees, you might think, they don't look that different. But as they grow up, the changes become apparent. Humans continue to be cute, while chimpanzees become forest tough guys. Human childhood is now much longer than that of chimpanzees, and as we grow, we retain many neotenous features, giving us a more infant-like appearance: a small face, small nose, round eyes, and a large head. Although this might not sound drastically different from chimpanzees, don't forget we split from them 7 million years ago, so you can't really compare the two directly. But Ardipithecus ramidus is different. Compared to Sahelanthropus and other Miocene apes, it retained more neotenous features. This is fascinating. In the evolutionary history of the human lineage, the further we go, the more species appear to have increasingly baby face features. Of course, things aren't that simple. Evolution isn't just a beauty filter turned all the way up. In any case, Ardipithecus ramidus is now classified as a hominin. It might even be the ancestor of Australopithecus. However, it appeared only a few 100,000 years before Australopithecus, so it could also just be a close cousin. These two families, Ardipithecus ramidus and Australopithecus, may both have come from an even earlier ancestor, such as Ardipithecus cadaba or even Sahelanthropus. In other words, human ancestry seems like a game of ape relay. Sahelanthropus passed the baton to Ardipithecus, who then passed it to Australopithecus, who ultimately passed it to us. While the evidence isn't ironclad, from an evolutionary tempo perspective, this is a real possibility. If not, at the very least we can be certain that from the late Miocene to the early Pliocene, our hominin ancestors had already begun adapting to life on the ground and were more inclined than other apes to retain juvenile features. Speaking of Australopithecus, this is the true protagonist that opens the book of human history. They were the first bipedal apes to be highly successful in Africa. The oldest known Australopithecus appeared more than 4 million years ago. Afterward, they branched out like a thriving family tree, spreading across Africa and gradually evolving into different branches. Our genus, Homo, likely emerged from one of these branches around 3 million years ago. Although scientists have not yet reached a consensus on which specific Australopithecus we evolved from, a question that may take many more years of research, it is certain that Australopithecus was the first ape to truly initiate the human mode. They walked on 2 legs, sometimes climbed trees, and their lifestyle gradually shifted from being tree-dwelling fanatics to savanna walkers. Some of their species survived for millions of years, and in a way, we can still see them today, because we are their continuation. The evolutionary process of human ancestors is still far from being completely understood. Although we have taken a big step forward, new fossil discoveries in the future will certainly continue to overturn our old ideas. Thank you for watching this brief summary of early human origins.